you all hear me okay now? I didn't realize I hadn't turned my phantom power on. There was no juice going to the mic. You still can't hear me now? Oh, okay, cool. All right, thanks, Rick. Yeah, I forgot I didn't push the little button to turn the phantom power on. All right, so welcome everybody. Hope everybody's had a good week and all that stuff. Who we got out there tonight? I've got some of my regulars. Anybody here that's like their first time being here at one of these streams? And if so, where are you from? Let's have a little roll call. Five by five. All right, and as usual, there is there's a link in the description so you can download the tabs for what we're going to be going over tonight. And there's this one kind of stretched out into, let's see how many. Oh, 3 pages. I thought it, for some reason I was thinking it was more than that. But yeah, those tabs, and you'll be able to follow along with what we're doing. So is Rascal Flatts song "What Hurts the Most." Hi, Chris. Oh, and you're Chris in Kansas, so that answers my other question. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so this is "What Hurts the Most" by Rascal Flatts. So it's not too terribly difficult to play, but it just sounds really good. It's one of those songs that sounds harder than it actually is. So we're only going to be needing to use, well, technically 4 chords, but for the most part of it's just 3 chords. So the 3 chords we're going to have E minor and D and C add 9. So sure everybody knows what E minor and D is, but C add 9, just for those of you who don't know what that is. Oh, and actually, so I guess I was wrong. I guess there's G in it also. So I guess there's 5 chords. So if we take G and you just move your first and second finger up a set of strings. So now your second finger is on the 3rd fret of the A string, and your first finger is on the 2nd fret of the D string, and you're on the 3rd fret of the B and the high E with your 3rd and 4th finger, just like if you were playing G, but you move it up like that, and now that's C add 9. So yeah, we'll have E minor, D, C add 9, G, and then we have another voicing of D that we'll be using a little bit too. So for this other voicing of D, basically if you take, well, in this case, we'll be going from the C add 9. Our first and second finger are doing the 2 notes that would be if you were playing just like regular C, right? So we're just going to take that and move it up a whole step. So now you'll be on the 5th fret of the A string and the 4th fret of the D string. Now, to be in the same key that they're in, you do need a capo on the 1st fret. But if you don't have a capo, or whatever, it doesn't really matter. You can play it in just regularly without a capo. Just keep in mind that you will be a half step lower than they are. So if you are trying to play along with the track, it's going to sound absolutely dreadful. All right, so hopefully everybody's had a chance to get those tabs, and I guess we can just tear into this. So, like I said, I'm in just regular standard tuning, but I am capoed on the 1st fret. All right, so to start this off, the first thing you're going to want to do is put your third finger onto the third fret of the B string. Now, something else too, if you haven't had experience with the capo, this can be kind of confusing. Since the capo is on the first fret, now the second fret of the guitar is actually the first fret. So you're just basically, it's just shortened the length, making the guitar higher in pitch. So when I say go to the fourth fret, technically it's the fifth fret of the guitar, but since the capo's on the first, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the fourth fret. So just keep that in mind. So whenever any fret numbers that I'm calling out are in reference to the capo being on. And when you look at the tabs, they are they're the way that the tabs are written. It wouldn't matter if you're using a capo or not. The tablature still looks the same. Let's see. Could you just tune down a half step if you don't have the capo? No. The capo actually makes the guitar go higher in pitch. So technically you'd have to tune your guitar up a half step, which just tuning it up a half step from standard would be fine to do that. But you know, really should get a capo. They're cheap. So if you don't have a capo and you're in the market, you want to buy one. So my advice on that is that when you go to look at capos, they're just like anything else, that you can pay lots and lots of money for one if you want to. Just like anything, you can spend lots of money on it if you want, but you don't have to. But don't cheap out on the cheapest ones. So there's ones that you can get that that they actually they have like a little nylon strap and they actually strap down onto the guitar. They work, but they're very inconvenient to get on and off. So I don't really care for those ones. One like this is just a Kaiser, just a regular capo I've had for a million years. These are about $20 somewhere, they maybe have gone up a little bit, but I can't imagine that they're got to be under $25. But I've seen ones that are like $100 and they just don't really make that big of a difference. I like this because it's easy on and off, and then you can just clip it on the headstock to store it. It just makes it a lot easier. Okay, so we're going to start off. We're going to put our third finger on the third fret of the B string, like we were going to play a D chord. So the reason you want to put that first, well, I'll explain why here in just a second. Oh, okay. I see, Chris. Yeah, with the capo, since it's going up in pitch, you would have to tune up to do it. There's no other way around it. Now, another thing you could use for a capo too, if you just don't have one and you want to be able to use it, and this works great. I mean, blues players, did this forever. In fact, one of the only photos, or no, that's never mind. That's not him. Forget it. What I was going to say. But anyway, you can take an easy way you can do it is just take a pencil. But not a round one. Get one of the ones that's like octagon shaped, so it's got the flat sides on it, and then cut it off on either side so it just protrudes. So when you lay it down across the fretboard, it's sticking off, it's hanging off over the edge about maybe a ½ inch on each side, no more than a ½ inch. And then just take an elastic band and wrap it around it so the elastic band goes around the back of the neck until it's tight enough that you're getting all of the strings like that, and that'll work. Not very easy to move around, but free. I mean, you probably got a pencil and a rubber band, in the junk drawer in your kitchen. Okay. So we put our third finger here on the third fret of the B string. And then we've got this little riff. And so the reason that we're putting our finger here is because of what follows after this riff. So this little riff, we start off, we've got the A string open, and then we're going to do a hammer onto the second fret with my first finger, and then a hammer onto the third fret with your second finger, like that. So then back to that 2, and then the string open like that. And then take your second finger and grab the 3rd fret of the low E string. And we're going to give that just a little bit of a bend, 1/4 step bend. So that's the first measure minus that open E string that I did. That's actually the first note of the next measure. So that first measure, and this is probably one of the most difficult parts of the song. So open, hammer to 2 to 3, back to 2, open, 3rd fret, and then it's just going to go to the open low E string. Now earlier I said that you were going to do E minor. My bad, it's minor 7. So it's just E minor still, but that's why this finger is here. So as soon as you do the pull off there, you hit the open string and then drop your first finger to the 2nd fret of the D string. So that gives us our E minor 7 chord. So here we're going to go E, D, G, B. Like that. Crit, you made it. I don't know if you saw the reply I left earlier for you about so you could get notified for these. All right, so we dropped to that E minor 7. Now, but the timing with this is a little weird. It's not. I shouldn't say it's weird. It's just different. So when we do this E, D, G, B, those are all 16th notes. So that takes care of beat number 1. 1, E, and then that's tied to a 1/4 note, so it rings out through beat 2. Oh, you're welcome, Crit. Let's see. So, and then the downbeat of beat 3, we're just going to take our first finger and we're going to move it from being on the 2nd fret of the D string to the 2nd fret of the G string. And now we're going to go D, G, B, E. And the E string is open, so I said earlier D, it's actually D suspended 2. So that's the first 2 measures. Now, starting on the 3rd measure, we're going to go to a C add 9. So again, we just leave our ring finger where it is, and then we reach up and grab C add 9. So 2nd finger, 3rd fret of the A string, and 1st finger, 2nd fret of the D string. And we're going to pick A, D, G, B. And that's 1 E and 2, 3 E, and then it just starts over again. So that's like the first kind of main section of this, and it repeats this a few times, like when the vocals are over the top of this, and then it has a little variation when we go on to the next part. So that whole sequence again. So remember, it's much easier if you start with this finger on here. Otherwise, you have to do this and drop both your fingers. And if you've already got this finger here and you're only having to worry about moving your first finger up, it makes it a lot easier because you can keep your eye on your first finger, and that way you'll plant it onto the correct string and the correct fret, more likely than doing it the other way. I tried playing it the other way myself. Just at first, I didn't even consider I could just leave that finger there, and I was screwing up left and right on it. It just caused me a lot of issues. All right, so you put your finger on. Just like that. So it does that. Whoops. 1, 2, It does it twice, and then on the third time is where everything starts changing. So before we move along to this next section of the song, does anybody have any questions about what we went over so far? Because, like I said, the song isn't really tough, but that little riff at the beginning of it is probably the most difficult part. But luckily, you can do it with your first and second fingers, so it should make it a whole bunch easier. Even if you're relatively a beginner, relatively new to shouldn't be too tough to be able to play it. What do you think, Jersey? Do you think you're going to be able to play that? Struggling? Well, just keep up with it. Don't worry about trying to play it fast. Like I said, since the little riff is you use your first and second finger, you should have a lot more. It should be a lot easier to do. All right. So this next part, if nobody has any questions or anything, then I'm just going to go ahead and move along. So this next part, we start off the same way with that little riff. And we go to the E minor 7. So E, D, G, B, and then D, G. So we're still doing sort of the same thing, but there's just this little variations on it. So then we move our first finger up, so we're on the D suspended 2, and now we're going to go D, G, B, E, G, and then to C add 9, and here we're going to do the 1 E and 2, 3, 4 E and. So we do the C add 9, and it takes up the first 3 beats of this measure, because you do 1 E and so you're just playing starting on the A, D, G, B, but it's 1 E and then that's tied to a half note. So 1 E and 2, 3, and then for beat 4, we just move that shape up, and you can actually just bring your ring finger along for the ride. When you move it up, because you're not going to be playing that string, and then you have to go back down there anyway. So this is a way that can kind of maybe help you to keep your shape together. So starting on beat 4 with that, you just A, D, G. So it's, and then that's the end of that measure. So and then back down to E minor 7. So if we just slide this shape back down and take our middle finger back off, whoops, and then it's basically kind of the same thing again. Hey, Brian, what's going on, man? Long time no speak. Glad you could join us. All right, so that second like D chord, then we come back down. We're on the E minor 7 again. So we do that kind of the same thing. E, D, G, B, D, G. Move our first finger up. So we're on the D suspended 2. D, G, B, E. And then to the C add 9. A, D, G, B, D, G, A, D, G, move up for the D1. So it's the same thing there, but the timing, you notice that the timing has changed just a little bit. So, this isn't like a complicated timing thing by any stretch. Sometimes I feel like that when I start talking about timing, that I make it sound more complicated than it actually is. But it's just not that complicated, but it is a little bit different. It kind of really, it's kind of what gives the song its melody. If you're familiar at all with the song, or if you just put it on and listen to it, you'll be able to hear it. All right, so that's like the second part, which would be like the verse. So the first thing we went over was like the intro, and then what we just went over was the verse. So everything that we've played thus far. And then that would lead us into the next part. Well, hey, Freedom, how's it going, man? Nice to see you could make it. Yeah, so that's like the intro in the verse, and then the next part would be like the little, I don't know, you want to call it the bridge, or like the pre-chorus section that we'll be going over. Oh, I didn't even notice that or think about it. Well, you know me, Brian. I'm versatile, if nothing else. I don't even ever think about I just open the drawer of whatever shirt is the next one in line is what I put on. All right. So I've lost my place. Oh, there we are. I'm glad everybody likes it. Maybe I'll have to put together some kind of a, combine like thrash metal and bluegrass, and we'll call it thrash grass. 30 Hendrix shirts? Damn. I have one Hendrix shirt, but I can't find it. All right. So the next part, like I said, this is what I would call it the pre-verse, or excuse me, not the pre-verse, the pre-chorus, or possibly the bridge. So the last part coming off from that verse, that last measure, we had the C add 9. Now we're going to go back down to the C add 9, and it's kind of like what we were doing before. So we've got the A, D, G, B, D, G, A, B, D, and then we switch to the D suspended 2, G, B, E. So now that leads off onto that's in the next measure. So when we're on the D suspended 2, D, G, B, D, G, D, B. Oh my gosh, let me just play that. I'm trying to start in a weird place. Okay. So this is the beginning. This is what, we're just starting again at the beginning of this bridge section. And then you're going to take your first finger, and I didn't realize that I did kind of a crappy job here on this, and there's a couple of cached chords that I didn't put on. So hold on. I think I actually just told you this part wrong. Hold on. Yeah. So at the beginning of this part, we start on C add 9. Then we go to D suspended 2, D, G, B. Then we're going to go back to C add 9, D, G, D, B, and then we're going to play the D and G string together. So we're on the second fret of the D string, and the G string is open. So we hit that twice, and then just the D, G, E. So, and then D suspended 2, just a strum, and then back to C add 9. So it, as you can see, like I was saying earlier, these parts are kind of, you know, sprinkled throughout the whole thing, all of the different sections. There's a lot of familiarity. Okay, I got a whole bunch of stuff popping up here. Throw down some Slayer on the acoustic. I could do that. Oh, cool, Freedom. Yeah, it is a good song. I haven't really heard much other stuff from this band. Not really a big fan of the singer because he really sounds like he's got his nose plugged up when he sings, but this is like a really cool song. I mean, it's really simple, but it just sounds really good, I think. And so something from Green Day. Well, there's a million songs that have those chords, the G, C add 9, and D. So there's tons of stuff with that. There you go, Chris. All right. So I need to. It's kind of annoying that I can't look at both of these at the same time. So there's going to be a slight little pause here when I switch, when I have to flip the page. All right, so let's start at the beginning of that, again, that bridge or pre-chorus, whatever you want to call it. So we're starting on C add 9. A, D, G, B, D, G, A, B, A, D, G, switch to D suspended 2, D, G, B, and now you go back to the C add 9. So on your transcription at the bottom of page 2, measure 11, so it's the last staff but the first measure where it starts with, 2 0 2 3. That actually should say C add 9 there, so you notice switch, and I missed it somehow. All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll break this into 2 parts. We'll do the C add 9 to D suspended 2, back to C add 9, back to D suspended 2. And then it goes back to C add 9 again, but we'll cover that in a second. So for this, we start again, C add 9, A, D, G, B, D, G, A, D, G, switch to D suspended 2, D, G, B, D, G. Oh, crap, and that's where, I didn't do the switch myself because it's not on there. I can't believe that I missed that. Okay, one more time. Back to C add 9. D suspended 2. Now to C add 9 again. A, D, G, B, D, G, A, B, D, A, D, G, B. So we just basically do that twice. So it's like 1 E and 2 and 1 E and and. So that's one. That's just in one measure. That's the third measure. It's the last measure of page 2. See, so it does that. And then it just does that. Okay. All right, so that last measure again, and then we'll go on to the next measure, which is the first measure on page 3. I hate how to do this. I wish that we didn't have to have it in this format because it just This all could have like literally fit on one page probably. Okay, so we're on C add 9, A, D, G, B, D, G, A, D, G, B, D, G, A, D, G, B. So that's what I just played there. That's on the first measure of page 3, measure 13. It's just the A, D, G, B. Now we switch to D suspended 2, and now we're actually going to start strumming instead of arpeggiating. So we switch to this D suspended 2, and this comes in, this first strum is an 8th note on the end of 2. And then it switches to 16th notes for beat 3, 4. So it's like, one long, and then and 3E and a 4E and then that's where it leads. That's like the buildup that leads us into the chorus. So when you do the strum for that part, you could just do it all downstrokes and like, and then like for the buildup, or you could do it the way I was doing it, just either way is good. It kind of, maybe I kind of think that all downstroke sounds better. Are all those your guitars? Yes, these are all my guitars. I did a, I guess you weren't here. I did a show and tell day one day and went and showed my guitars. I don't think I showed all of them. I think I just showed the ones that were convenient. I'm planning on doing that again one of these days and bust out a bunch. I've got a bunch of amps and stuff that are just, stacked up in this huge walk-in closet in here, and it's just full of amplifiers and crap. Okay, so that's the intro, the verse, and then the bridge or pre-chorus, whatever you want to call it, and then that just leaves the chorus section, and then that's basically all the parts. So before we move on, does anybody have any questions about anything we've gone over thus far? Oh my gosh, that was good. Thanks, Crit. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions or anything, then we can move along. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe there's one here. Oh, okay. Crit, there's actually you're probably better at playing without looking at your hands than you think you are. I do this with my private students all the time. I'll just basically force them to play something without, and they end up doing way better than they're like always surprised at how well they can do. Now, it doesn't mean that you should never look. I mean, if you're sitting here watching me play, you can see me looking at my hands, and I've been playing for, you know, a long time. There's nothing wrong with looking, but you don't want it to be a thing that you're constantly having to look. And so you're looking back and forth constantly, like, you know, like you're watching, you know, hamsters play tennis or something. So for the whole arpeggiating thing, you probably have more experience already with your left hand, you know, with your fretting hand. But when you're going to pick and you're, you know, trying to, you know, just arpeggiate, you know, play the strings separately, that's where you're probably having some issues. So what I would recommend that you do is this little exercise. It's like, it's not very exciting to play, but it really does help. So what you can do, and normally you wouldn't do this with a capo on, but I don't want to, I'm just going to leave it on. You can start off just by playing like your low E. You're going to let your ears are going to help you with this. So you're just playing your low E string and you're watching your picking hand. And now you're going to go, okay, I'm going to switch to the fourth string, to the D string. So you make that change and listen. Now you're going to go back to the low E. Back to the D. Now try doing it without looking. You hear it, you keep hearing it, you know what it's supposed to. So if you hit the wrong string, you're going to hear it. So sit there and do that. And then do another one. Maybe start doing the A string to the B string or whatever. And just sit there and do, you know, take 5 minutes a day just working with doing that, and you'll notice a huge improvement. Because what it is that you've got to get so your right hand kind of obtains some muscle memory for it to know how far apart the strings are from each other. Now in something like this where you're just, you know, you're not having to skip over a bunch of strings all the time. What you can do is you can do the chord, you know, get your fingers on for the chord and then watch this hand. These chord changes are really easy. So you could keep your eyes on your fretting, or excuse me, on your picking hand almost the entire time. Because if you keep that third finger planted here, then it's just a matter of moving your first finger around. It makes it a whole bunch, it'll make it a whole bunch easier to just play everything going forward if you work with this. Like I said, it's not really exciting and fun to play, but it really does work. I mean, like I said, if you spend about 5 minutes a day on it, within a week or so, you'll notice a huge improvement. I mean, it really does help. Okay, I'm going to try this because everything you do is spot on. It helps immensely. Well, thank you, Crit. I really appreciate that. I don't know if I don't think I really agree with you that everything I say is spot on. I mean, I really try. I mean, I've been teaching for since 1987. So I mean, you know, I've had thousands of students, but I'm far from being an expert on the guitar. It's a lifelong learning thing. As soon as you think you've learned everything, that's where you should be worried. You're in trouble then. All right, so let's move on and do this chorus. So for the chorus, we just start off with the regular old E minor. So I guess at the beginning of this, when I said, oh, there's 5 chords in this, it was a big lie. But a lot of them, they're so close to, you know, D versus D suspended 2, E minor versus E minor 7. They're, you know, basically the same thing. Thanks, Jersey. Appreciate that. Oh, well, that's cool, Chris. Yeah, Freedom, that is actually a really great thing to do. There's songs that every one of you know how to play that you can play with your eyes closed, and you just don't, or I shouldn't say you don't, but you just may not realize that you know you can do that. Maybe you can, but I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of you that just don't realize you can play that way. So it's really good just to take a simple song that has chord changes that like this one, where you don't have to take off all your fingers. Whenever you can leave some kind of a finger on the fretboard to give you an anchor point, you can make your changes a lot smoother without having to look. And then just, play songs just with your eyes closed. The more you do it, you get better at it. You'll actually sharpen those senses and that, and just that skill with your brain. Yeah, when you're doing something new, looking at it, like I said, don't get me wrong, it's not a wrong thing to do. I do it all the time. There's certain things that I play, certain like arpeggio sequences that I never I'm like just staring at my hands. I'm probably not very interesting to watch play live, because there's a lot of times where I'm really focused on what I'm doing, so I'm not like moving around a lot. I'm just kind of there, playing. All right, so for this chorus, we're going to start off with E minor, and we've got the first strum is a quarter note. So it's like 1, 2, and see, 1, 2, and 3, and yeah, it's kind of weird. So this is a thing that trying to count this kind of stuff out. This isn't really complicated, so it can be done, but in my opinion, it's much easier to really kind of feel it out than it is to try to count it. And so a way that you can kind of help with this is that if you're looking at the transcription right now, so we're on that E minor, and the first one there, the stack of notes is a quarter note. So if you do not know how to identify quarter notes and eighth notes and half notes, all that stuff by sight, I'm not talking about looking at it, knowing where the notes are on the guitar, or even what notes they are for that matter. But you should be able to identify whether they're quarter notes or eighth notes or whatever, because it makes with counting like much easier. And then what we're going to do here, where we're just kind of feeling our way out on this strum. So we've got a quarter note, and then we've got an eighth note. So an eighth note rings out for 50% less than a quarter note. So like this is long, medium, short, short. So then we've got 2 16th notes. So this one rings out long, this one half as long, and then these two half as long as that. So, and it's got beat 2 ends with 2 16th notes, and beat 3 starts with 2 16th notes and then an eighth. And then it goes to a quarter, but it switches to a D chord at that point. So it C slag. So like if you listen to the song, ba, 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 we just hit that D major on beat 4 is a quarter note. And then starting on the next measure, we go to a C add 9. So on that C add 9, eighth, and beat 1 is 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. So you've got an eighth note, and then 10 16th notes, an eighth note, and then 2 16th notes. So again, it's just kind of that feel kind of a thing is what is going to make this easier and sound better. If you're playing it and you're like really like really robotic and very staccato, it just doesn't sound as good. It's got to have a little bit more of that kind of a groove to it. So honestly, when you're looking at the notation for this, it's more or less kind of a guideline. If you get the changes down and you go to play along with the song, you're going to really, that's the best way to really get the rhythm, is to feel it that way. So Then on the next measure, we go to G. So simple to move from C add 9 is just move our first and second fingers down a set of strings. So 1 and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Then to a D, and so it's 1 and then we take our middle finger off, so it's D suspended 2. So it gives it first, that high E string is open now, and I lost my place. Okay, so and then this starting on beat 2, now it's 16th notes. 2 E and 3, put our pinky back down, E and take it back off, 4 E and so. And it just repeats. And that's basically it. So the strumming part here is easier than the arpeggiated part in a lot of ways, but if you're fairly new with strumming, this can be kind of intimidating. I remember first learning chords and trying to strum songs and stuff, and it used to make me feel really self-conscious when I would go to, especially on an acoustic guitar, because of the volume. I think it was a thing that I just didn't want anybody to hear me playing, and it used to give me anxiety, to try to do strumming and some of the strum patterns and things like that, because I was under the impression back then that it was, that everything was like some sort of a pattern of so many downs and so many ups, and it just doesn't work that way. Yes, it is very cool to get lost into a groove. Yeah, you can do the same thing with scales. So we went through that whole, where we went through all the 7 major modes. When you practice that stuff, you probably have gotten into a habit of kind of keeping an eye on your fretting hand, or maybe you work had some focus on your picking hand, make sure you're alternate picking. But it's really good to just play it, just close your eyes. Oh my gosh. Like that. I feel like that you get a lot more out of your playing, or out of your practice rather, when you try to do more of relying on what the conscious part of our brain wants, which is to watch everything and stuff. If you get it to where you're more just kind of in the zone and you're in the more the subconscious part of your brain, that helps you really, it just makes you better. What Freedom said, Crit. All right, so that is the whole song. Does anybody have any questions about this part that we just went over, this the strumming section, or any of the other parts, or just any guitar related questions in general? Also, don't believe that I mentioned it earlier, but aside from the link where you can get the tabs for this, there's also a link in the description where you can download a free chord chart from Guitar Control. It's in PDF format, and it just has pretty much every chord you could, it doesn't have every chord, obviously, but it has a voicing of every kind of a chord that you would ever need for whatever situation you're in. And it's all just at a glance. It's very well put together and stuff. It's a great asset, and it's free. Just click on the link. Oh, thanks, Freedom. Sounds great when I put new strings on it, and then I'm just so bad at doing that. I know other guitar players, they're like putting new strings on their guitar like every week, and I wait until they have like mushrooms growing on it before I change them. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions or anything, then I think we can wrap it up. But I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. If you like the content that I'm doing, hit that thumbs up and leave comments. It helps with that whole YouTube algorithm thing that everybody keeps talking about, and it helps to show GC that I'm doing a good job. So if anybody, trying to read and talk at the same time doesn't really work out for me very well. Yeah, so if you like the content, click the like button, leave comments, all that good stuff. Oh, it looks like stuff's coming in. Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it. And Chris, yeah, that's actually a great. That I do the same. Do the same thing. If you're playing, if you're just playing a scale, it's not very musical and stuff. But if you're just like, okay, I'm gonna try to just use the 6 notes, and then try to come up with some sort of a melody or something. So like maybe you could like go. Just whatever. It kind of forces you to work with less to get more. Could I do some tasty country licks? I'm not really a great country player. I love it. I like Jerry Reed is like one of my favorite guitar players of all time. On my electric guitar, I can do a few things, but I haven't really done a lot on here. It's hard to get the with the acoustic guitar strings, to really get it sounding good. But if there's interest in that and doing some country stuff, maybe we'll do more and do like some like, cool, country licks and things like that. All right. Well, again, thank you everybody for coming out. I really appreciate the support, and, get the tabs, get that chord chart, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks again, everybody, for coming out. I really appreciate it. Have a great night, everybody, and a great weekend.